welcome to the programme, Saul. Now, major volatility across the board. Can you give us a sense of the overall sentiment?
The overall sentiment is undoubtedly negative. What's particularly unsettling markets is the sheer uncertainty that now surrounds the course of not just tariff and trade policy, but almost every aspect of economic policy under the Trump regime in the United States. Not only is there uncertainty about the levels of tariffs being imposed and the reasons why they're being imposed, but there's also inconsistent messages coming from key spokesmen for the Trump regime as to whether these tariffs are things that might be negotiated away if other countries offer sufficient concessions to the United States, or whether they're to be a permanent feature of the trading environment. And in those circumstances, businesses who might be contemplating undertaking more investment in manufacturing in the United States are unable to decide the sort of environment in which they might be operating. Businesses seeking to export goods to the United States are uncertain as to what they might have to charge their customers by way of higher prices in order to recoup the impact of tariffs. One thing that is clear, and that's very well understood by American people themselves, is that it's American consumers who will be paying the costs of these tariffs that the Trump regime is imposing. It's not going to be Chinese, it's not going to be Canadians, it's not going to be Mexicans, it's not going to be the people of Madagascar and Lesotho or the penguins on Heard and McDonald Island who'll be paying these tariffs. It will be American consumers, and that's why, along with the uncertainty that's now being confronting businesses, that talk of a recession in the United States is increasing, and because the rest of the world is still a bit fragile after the pandemic and the increases in interest rates that most countries have experienced in recent years to deal with the post-pandemic burst of inflation, that other countries are also vulnerable to the consequences for them of a US recession, magnified by the trade policies which the Trump regime is now pursuing.
Right now, Chinese goods have been hit with the biggest tariff, but we're seeing mainland stocks rising at the same time. Why could that be?
I think that's because the Chinese authorities are directing state-run financial institutions to support the stock market. We've seen that happen before, for example, in 2014-15, when the Chinese share market had a meltdown of its own, that in the end, a floor was put under Chinese share prices by state-owned banks and other investment institutions putting money into the share market. The suggestions are that that sort of thing is happening again. The contrast, of course, is with what's happening in the Hong Kong market, where Chinese-backed enterprises, financial enterprises, don't typically do what the government tells them to do to support the stock market when it's falling. And of course, the Hong Kong economy is very closely correlated with the Chinese economy. So that's probably giving you a truer picture of what investors think the outlook is for China, rather than the somewhat manipulated outcomes that I think we're seeing in the Shanghai and Shenzhen markets.
Let's have a look at South Korea now. The won has fallen to a 16-year low, and we know that they are in negotiation with Trump at the moment. How are those negotiations going? Do we know anything at all at the moment?
No, we don't know anything about them at all. Mr. Trump did say over the weekend that he had a call from the leader of the Vietnamese Communist Party offering substantial reductions in tariffs, but Mr. Trump didn't indicate that that was likely to prompt a rethink of the 46%, I think, tariffs they are, that are proposed to being imposed on Vietnam. Korea and Japan are both being threatened with tariffs of between 24 and 26%. That's higher than being imposed in Europe. Korea needs to think about the extent to which they want to give in to this bullying by the United States, because history suggests that once you do show that you're willing to give in to the sort of intimidation that the Trump regime is now engaging in to friendly countries as well as to its more traditional adversaries, that's just simply an invitation to come back to more. And maybe the won is weakening because the currency markets suggest or think that this tentative action on the part of the Korean government is a sign of weakness rather than resolve on their part.
Right, and we will have to leave it there. Saul Eslake, thank you very much for your insights.